Good morning, everybody. It's about 3:27 in the morning, and I just finished taking care of your guided reading, and so I just wanted to leave you a little note. You're in the Lion's Den with me. This is the home gym. All right, so let's start with question one. Question one talks about how abolitionism was very similar to the other reform movements in the tactics and ideas, but why it was so politically explosive compared to the others. So first thing you want to look at is your tactics. Your major tactics for all reform movements is using religion. If you notice, we talk about the Mormons, we talk about the Shakers, we discuss Oneida and everybody else. So you're using religion, and the abolitionists thoroughly and completely use religion. So you have to state that you're using religious tactics. You're using things like revivals. You are using connecting women to the movements. So those are the tactics that are being used. Also, another tactic is that people are writing. There are these tracts. I think in a book they use the term tracts. They're essays, they're pamphlets, they're petitions. You're writing. Now, why is anti-slavery abolitionism explosive and politically explosive? Let's make it very simple. Politics and economics. I was reading through it, and a few people like Norma and Elvira and some others were able to tell me how the South saw the abolition movement as a direct attack because it would mess with their economic program. Getting that free labor from the slaves is something very, very beneficial to their program of making money, of selling cotton, of doing the things they needed to do. So that is something that you need to bring up. Also, if that's the financial economic sense of it, but if you're going to talk about politically explosive, you have to discuss the constitutional issues, and don't just say John Quincy Adams said it was unconstitutional. That's what the book said. So your thought process here is there is a constitutional situation where if you limit someone's ability to petition the government, it violates their civil liberties and the First Amendment. But on the other side, if you set aside a federal law that abolishes slavery, you violate the Ninth and 10th Amendment, which gives states rights. So what do you do here? So that's why it's politically explosive. In addition to that, in the years from 1830 or so to 1850 or so, there was a shift and an undulation of the different political parties. We go from a Jacksonian Democrat situation, and then you move into the Whigs, and then the Republicans come in the late 40s, early 50s. So there's all this movement. So that's why it's politically explosive, all right? So let's go down to number two. Number two says, how did antebellum utopia communities attempt to redefine gender roles? And then also it says, what communities were most effective in this effort? What did they accomplish? I am pretty upset about this one. I'm pretty upset because a lot of people keep coming up with Seneca Falls. And my question about Seneca Falls is, which one of the utopian movements was that? The utopian movements are the Shakers, are the Oneida Society, are the Mormons, are those individuals who want to separate themselves and create a perfect society. Seneca Falls was created by the Quakers, who are a old religious thing, a group. If you compare them to the new religious groups, the Quakers come in the 1600s with Penn, with William Penn into Pennsylvania. You know, the guy from the Quaker Oats box. So if you're talking about something that existed for 200 years already, and then you're going to say that they're the ones who were the utopians, that doesn't work in this particular case. So you need to remove the Seneca Falls from the process. I know why you picked Seneca Falls, because you're answering for gender roles. And that's good, but it doesn't fit the question. Remember, AP means answer the prompt. So what I need us to do now is go backwards and say, what did the utopian communities do about gender? Boom. You know that you have the Shakers who say, with Mother Ann, who say, no, we're not even going to have sex. And we're not going to have different sexes necessarily. Our gender's not going to be different. We're going to live like brothers and sisters and be equal. So that's how the Shakers are addressing gender equality and changing gender roles. Now when you look at Oneida, they're also going to be getting some gender equality. But they're going to be the exact opposite of the coin of the Shakers. Oneida, they say, We can have sex. You can have free love. They're almost like, we made fun of it last week, like hippies in a sense, that free love type of movement. So that's what you have to look at for that. And if you have freedom to choose who you marry, who you're with, then that gives more control to women. All right. Also, they have female leadership on both sides with Mother Ann and some others. So that's the Oneida and those and the Shakers. Now, honestly, which one of these communities was most active in this effort? It's which one you think is most active. Like, not to be funny about it, but you can argue that both sides were very active and they were pushing for something more than just themselves. All right. Now, a lot of people want to answer this question with the Mormons, but I don't think you can answer the question with the Mormons to try to change or redefine gender roles of women, in the sense that they're very strict in their gender roles of women. Remember, women are the ones later on who go through the polygamous process, and they are what? Allowed to be, the men are allowed to have more than one wife. So you have a situation where you really don't have the Mormons being redefiners of gender roles. They're actually entrenching gender roles where women are seen as something to acquire. How many wives does that gentleman have? How much property does that gentleman have? How many oxen does that gentleman own? And that's what these women become in a sense. And it becomes this paternalistic situation where this gentleman is rescuing these women or protecting these women by marrying them. So it still goes in that old school paternalistic thought process. So you want to go Shakers, you want to go Oneida, and either one that you pick, you just have to say why you think they did a better job, and then you have to explain why they accomplished it. I really can't tell you exactly, because then I defeat the purpose of giving questions all the time, all right? So that's the process I want you to use when you redo number 2. Let's look at 3. Number 3 is, who were the Mormons, right? So who were the Mormons? And I'm looking at some of them, and it's very simple. The Mormons were a group, upstate New York, in a burned over district, right, that had been, in a sense, you have to think that they had been evangelized to in some capacity, right? And who were they really? They were a very tight-knit community. Very tight-knit community, number 1. Number 2, they believed in cooperation. They believed in unity. You get it? Tight-knit community. Makes sense, right? But even more than just being a tight-knit community, they were successful economically. They were very successful farmers and very successful traders. In addition to that, they were strict. A belief of Mormonism is that you don't drink alcohol. If you go to Utah today, which, Utah, the population is maybe not even half Mormon or so, but about 80% of the politicians and the leadership of Utah to this day are Mormon. And when you go and you get a shot of liquor in Utah, you get an ounce, not an ounce and a half, like you do everywhere else. And you're like, what's that mean? But I'll tell you about that later in class. But the whole deal is this. They're very strict in their behaviors. So, men and women both cover their heads. They, when you're outside, you speak with in a certain manner. Very strict. If you don't follow the rules of your father or the community, they will ostracize you, meaning throw you out the community. They're very, very strict in their behaviors. Now, if someone like this moves next door to you, or moves into your community, or moves into a community right next to you, and they start being successful economically, and they separate themselves from you, and they tell you that they're better than you in their religion, it starts to kind of rub you the wrong way. So that answers the part of why are they moving so much, all right? And then really, why did they have to move completely out of New York? And then when they went to the Midwest, why did they have to vacate the Midwest and go all the way west to Utah? Very simple. Polygamy. People at the time, and even today, were not very happy with polygamy. And in fact, a lot of people argue that, oh yeah, polygamy is legal in Utah. No. In fact, for Utah to become a state, they had to say no polygamy. Polygamy, if you don't remember, is having more than one wife or more than one husband. But in the case of the Mormons, it's always more than one wife. So that is why they're moving so much, because initially became an issue of being resented because of their success and their religious beliefs. And then even deeper, it became an issue of, we don't want polygamy. That's what other people were saying about them, all right? And so let's go to number 4. Man, number 4 drives me crazy. The question says, how did the efforts to produce a system of universal public education reflect the spirit of the age? And you know what? almost everyone, maybe only 2 or 3 people who turned in the assignment, actually talked about the spirit of the age. Your job is to tell me what's happening 1820s, 30s, 40s, 50s. What's the spirit of the age? The spirit of the age is evangelism about and spreading certain religious truths, right? One thing that everyone believes in is that people are born good. It's not back in Euro class when everything was original sin and we all were evil to begin with. So you have to start with the fact that all people are born good. And because they are born good, and it's an enlightenment idea, going back to enlightenment when we started the class, that if people are born good, they can become better and they deserve to learn and understand and grow. Another spirit issue of the spirit age is that women should be part of the education process. And women should be the ones who nurture young people through education. And education should be a nurturing process as opposed to a you got it wrong, you get your hand slapped process. It is supposed to look like you got it wrong. Why did you get it wrong? How are you thinking? All right? So that's the spirit of the age. A more open, thought-provoking, thinking, sitting down and understanding spirit. Not a get the answer right or, you go sit in the corner spirit. Also, that all people deserve some sort of basic education. And in addition to that, the value of the individual. I know all of your names. And I am coming from the spirit that was brought up from the 1830s and 40s where I know every single student's name. I know their cousins, their sisters, their brothers. And you are taught to understand young people in and of themselves individually. This actual education thought process starts in the 1830s with people like Horace Mann, with people like Webster. Noah Webster, the dictionary guy, right? Those type of individuals pushing for that. So that's where your conversation starts from. And so when you are able to define the spirit of the age, then you can tell me more of the question and more of the answer and how it works, okay? So that's pretty much it. It took a little bit, but I'd rather videotape it out for you so you can watch it and read it over and over again and then see what's going down, all right? Love you guys, and see you in a few hours. Peace out.